Congratulations on your purchase of the new RICOH THETA X camera. It's a fantastic 360 camera that shoots amazing 360 images and video. There's a range of free software available. Go to theta360.com and look for the Downloads tab. You're going to want to download the desktop application and the mobile app. There are two different settings to automatically orient the first scene that you see in the 360 image. There is face detection and also AI initial view. The AI initial view will attempt to identify the most prominent object in the scene. It could be a person, but it could also be a building or a piece of equipment, or maybe even a tree or a plant. Using the LCD touchscreen of the RICOH THETA X, this is the body of the camera. You can also preview the scene. You can see that regardless of the orientation of the camera, it's finding the most prominent object, which is, in this case, it's me as a person next to some computer equipment. You can also view the XF data, some additional data of the scene. In this particular scene, I'm using HDR. This is why the ISO appears to be lower at ISO 64 with 0 EV. So the light and darkness would be the EV compensation on it. To save on battery, you can disable the LCD touchscreen when you're using the camera. If you want to see the screen again, you can tap on it and then press resume, and the operation will resume normally. To extend the battery life and reduce heat, you can also reduce the frame rate on live mode. So it doesn't affect the actual picture, but it does affect the what appears on the screen. As the LCD panel is one of the bigger draws of the power, there's a whole range of different options that you can use to turn off the display or make the display dimmer. That would also extend the battery life and reduce the heat a bit. So you could set it to auto, or you could maybe turn it all the way down, or if you're okay with the heat, just leave it bright. If you swipe on the camera screen from the right to the left, you'll have a different menu pop open, which is the plugin. Right now I have my camera connected in client mode, so my camera is actually connected to the internet using Wi-Fi. The camera is using the hotspot in my office to connect to the internet. I can also control the camera through the web API this way. A cool little feature here is I can go directly to the plugin store directly from the body of the camera and install plugins directly into the camera from the body of the camera. So the screen you're looking at is actually the screen on the body of the camera, and it's downloading it directly into the camera. It's pretty cool. In this case, I'm installing a plugin which allows me to talk to the camera. The way this plugin works is that when you say the word yes, it will take the picture. So it's using a voice activation as a trigger. This might be good for maybe a party scene or some type of scene where you just want to shout at the camera and get the picture taken. The RICOH THETA X actually runs a version of Android inside the camera. So you can scroll through the available applications for the camera right here on the touchscreen. I've selected the voice activation. Now yes. I'm going to shout at it yes, and it's going to take the picture. It's pretty cool. One of the things to be aware of is that you have to be in video mode in order to set the video settings. This top bottom correction is the auto horizon correction. So if you tilt the camera sideways, the video is going to remain stable. It's kind of like a little software gimbal to kind of stabilize the video when you're walking around. You can set the bit rate. You know, if you're going to upload it to YouTube, the bit rate, you might also set it to lower. It's going to reduce the file size, and YouTube transcodes it down anyway. So I don't personally see any advantage to keeping the bitrate high when you upload it to YouTube. At resolutions beyond 4K, so at 5.7K, 30 frames per second, you might have a heat issue, so you may need to blow a fan for extended usage. If you swipe up from the bottom of the camera, you can adjust the EV and white balance compensation. So I'm going to go back into the image mode of the camera. In image mode, you can flip between 5K and 11K. So the 11K is going to give you a much better picture with a higher resolution at the expense of a slightly larger file size. Postview relates to whether the camera deletes the image from the camera when it transfers it to your mobile phone. CT settings is the color temperature settings. So this is adjustment for incandescent lighting or fluorescent lighting. You can either use the icons to navigate the color temperature or the actual values. With the actual number, so color temperature now, I've slid it over to the right, and you have these specific values. This will make it more orange or more blue or kind of this reddish tinge here. So you can play around with the white balance. Now I'm at the exposure compensation or EV compensation. So the higher the EV, the brighter it is. And the option over here on the right, you can set it to HDR, which will adjust for different light values. The CT settings doesn't actually affect the usability of the camera. It just affects the UI and how the color temperature is represented. So I'm going to scroll up from the bottom again, and then I'm going to hit the white balance. Now you see that instead of these color temperature numbers, I have a series of icons. So maybe the icons look familiar to you, and you know which ones are related to fluorescent lighting. For example, this one, it actually makes the fluorescent lit room look quite a bit better. The meanings of the icon are in the online user manual for the RICOH THETA X. Compared to the RICOH THETA Z1, I found that I've been using the exposure compensation, setting it to 0.7 or even 1.3 in the office that I'm using. Office has fluorescent lighting. I see some comparison shots with the THETA Z1 fully auto, and the X often doesn't look quite as good. I actually think it's maybe the exposure compensation. If you just bump that thing up a little bit, it would make quite a bit of difference with the THETA X. So to get the files from my THETA X to my Mac, I'm using the RICOH THETA file transfer for Mac. It's a free application from the RICOH THETA site. I'm next going to open up the file for more closer inspection on my laptop computer with the free RICOH THETA desktop application that I downloaded from theta360.com, and it's running on the Mac here. You can fine-tune the white balance of the color temperature as well as the exposure compensation. Those are two pretty easy settings that you can just easily adjust. This exposure compensation is quite easy to use, and I think it could really make a big impact on the pictures if you're just getting started, right? So you can see if I have it at the default setting of EV0, the picture is going to be considerably darker. So this is the automatic default setting of the camera. I'm using the free file transfer for Mac application from the RICOH THETA site again to move the image from the RICOH THETA camera over to my Mac desktop. Then I'm going to open it with the RICOH THETA desktop application for inspection. So the default auto light, it's a bit darker, I think, than some people might like. This is, of course, with the color temperature compensation for fluorescent lighting. I'm going to open up the images side by side. I'm using a different application called Fsp Viewer. This is also free. This is how I'm able to open up the left side is an EV compensation of 1.3, and the right side is a default value. I think for certain purposes, if it's a real estate, you might want to get a little bit brighter. So experiment with the settings. These two settings might help you